What is up, YouTube? It is Onion Bomb here. Welcome back to another Honkai Impact 3rd reaction video. Today we're back on the animation lore playlist, and last one hit home kind of good. We got to the graduation trip portion of the the story, I guess, and yeah, it hit pretty good. What are we gonna get to next? Because that point is kind of like the end of part 1 of Honkai. So I think we have some stuff to kind of get into before part 2. Starting it off with a quick video from the official Honkai channel, Eyes. I think that's just that Eyes Decalogue. So let us go. God, what these are always fun videos. Captions on, yeah, captions on.
華麗なヒロインがこんな形で登場するなんて。久々だけど、あの子はどうしてるかな。あー、すごい雪。雪は豊年の印。来年のキャベツが楽しみだね。
Cabbage.
偉大なるキャベツの神様、パーティーの食材をください。ローストチキンにアイスクリーム、そうだ、花火も必要だね。まさかキャベツの神様がくれた食材。じゃあキャベツで最高のディナーを用意しよう。
But man, they got this shit. They got a lot of cooking with Valkyries. A lot of cooking in Honkai.
キャベツチキンはオーブン、ひがく丸アイスは冷凍庫。頑張ってるね。私の考えすぎだったみたい。サプライズで私が花火を用意してあげよう。オーブンは初めてだし、余熱？とにかく加熱でいいよね。
Man, I lost a sneeze like 3 times earlier. That one felt so good.
やっぱりほっとけない。でもなぜかほっとしたよ。まずい、もうこんな時間なのに花火がまだだった。いい匂い。あ、館長。
No, the god is a cabbage. Oh, bless you. I just sneezed earlier. Like a minute ago.
ああ、サンキュー。って、愛ちゃんの目はごまかせないよ。だって今年は彼女も一緒に年越しするんだもん。でもなぜかほっとしたよ。館長、キャベツの神様が降臨したよ。なるほどね。一緒に年越しするでしょ。おかえりなさい、あい。キャベツを取りに行こう。
So there are 2 of them.
愛ちゃんまだ眠い
Like, I wasn't sure if they were just doing that for, like, the story or, like, the thing or not.
After 5 years, the
Wait. So, interesting. This one is called Did Ai-chan Ruin the Story? The meta storytelling of Honkaiimpact 3rd. Did I ruin the story? I still don't 100% know the character of Ai. But I've heard of her and heard some things through the videos in this.
After
I know a little
5
something.
years, the final battle is finally upon us. It has been a journey, hasn't it? Here, Kiana, take my blessing. May it help you overcome the final... Wait, no! It is safe to say that after chapter 35, I Lambda became public enemy number 1 in the eyes of a lot of Honkai players. Breaking the fourth wall has always been a big contention point for many. It's a risky move. If not done properly, it can really ruin the setting of a story. There is no real formula for how to break the fourth wall, which is why there are so many varying reactions in the community. From people being happy because they finally felt recognized and appreciated,
ありがとう。ハイペリオンの艦長。
to others who felt like it ruined the whole story. And don't get me wrong, it's fine if you don't like when a game breaks the fourth wall. It's fine if you don't want to self-insert in the story. It's fine to think that it's a cheap move, because, well, it is. But what elevates it to more than just that is how much the intention behind it resonates with the individual. That's why it can be meaningful for some players or a complete mood breaker for others. But even if you hated it, I think it's important to understand why the devs did this.
So that was crazy. I think we said so at the exact same time. But I thought I heard before that Ai-chan was like the in-game, like, you know, almost tutorial person. Not really tutorial person, but like the in-game like person, like for like you almost. Like you like had to like tell you about in-game stuff, break the fourth wall, if you will. So yeah, I guess she did kind of also be a character in the story, and that's kind of the argument here. About the fourth wall break, that was interesting. I personally, I wouldn't mind that too much. I feel like that would be kind of cool, especially if you've been playing it for a while. But like he kind of said, I can understand if that like kind of like breaks someone's like immersion, if you will. I guess it could strengthen others, break others. I don't think that'd be something I mind entirely, but I guess I don't entirely know.
Let's take a look at the meta storytelling of Honkaiimpact 3rd and try to understand what exactly happened in chapter 35 and most importantly, why. Before getting into all the juicy stuff, let's have a short recap. During chapter 35, Hyperion Lambda recognizes the player as an observer from a different dimension. She uses a lot of meta knowledge that characters from the game are not supposed to have, such as mentioning version cycles, or alluding to the fact that there's no point in having more than 3 people participate in the battle against Kevin, since the players cannot control more than that. During the final battle, she brings a literal battleship out of nowhere, and she helps the main cast break Kevin's shield using the wishes of all the players from the Honkai Salvation Log event, which is an event that has no connection with the main story. Without context, it sounds like some total random bullshit. But what makes these moments meaningful for the players is the underlying message beneath all the fourth wall breaking. So, in order to understand that message, let's try to dissect every element of the equation, starting with the main culprit.
Cabbage mommy is great.
When she first appears, Lambda describes herself as a being born inside a pseudo-time crystal. But what in the name of the Cabbage Lord is a pseudo-time crystal? Well, to find an answer, we must look at the concept of time crystals in the place that no one wants to go to: reality. Time crystals are a purely theoretical concept and there's no evidence of them actually existing. But even so, it's a very interesting concept. Crystals in three-dimensional space are formed by atoms arranged in a particular pattern that keeps repeating. Well, a time crystal is the same, but you also add the dimension of time, creating a repeating space-time system. Interestingly enough, the existence of crystals in nature is a manifestation of spontaneous symmetry breaking, which occurs when the lowest energy state of a system is less symmetrical than the equation governing the system. In other words, because Project Stigma distorted the space around the Earth and the Moon, it broke the symmetry of the time and formed a crystal-like structure which encompasses both the past and the future of the project in a oscillatory system. Because Lambda was born in that pseudo-time crystal, she perceives time more like a pendulum that constantly goes back and forth rather than a straight line like we do. Even if she lives in the present, she already knows all the possible futures of Project Stigma. It's important to note, although, that Honkai also adds a lot of pseudoscience to already established concepts, so the way pseudo-time crystals work inside the game is highly exaggerated from what we know that is theoretically possible in reality. Now, the next question would be, why is she aware of the player?
The captain! Whoa.
People usually associate the captain with the main character of the Captainverse, which is a series of events that tell an overarching connected story about him traveling through the Sea of Quanta. While the captain is mostly his own character, he is supposedly the player's avatar in the game. The timeline of the Captainverse is a bit messy due to Hoyoverse making the chronology of the events hard to follow, but many theorize that there might be more than one captain, or a single captain existing at the same time in different periods of his life. Dottore much? But for today, we'll be focusing on the version of the captain that is purely the representation of the player that we see in the Honkai Salvation Log event. For context, that event is basically a giant fourth wall breaking quest in which Honkaiimpact 3rd gets corrupted by an independent sentience from the Sea of Data, and the captain must help I Lambda restore the game back to normal. This is also the same version of Captain that I Lambda addresses in chapter 35. If you pay close attention, after she realizes that we are observing her, she assumes the identity of Miss Administrator from the event. But why did this happen? She didn't have any memory of us before. Well, this is just a theory, but we know that Honkai likes to dwell a lot in quantum physics, right? Now, let me introduce you to the concept of quantum superposition. This concept states that any quantum system can exist in multiple states until it's measured by
Yo, I swear, you have to take like a whole college science course to like understanding Honkai in its entirety. You're like there could be like a course in like science just called Honkai.
And guess who's an observer? If you said we, you get a cabbage.
Hey!
Lambda can exist as both
Why am I
a
saying
being
it?
born from a time crystal inside the confined universe of the game, and also as the misadministrator from the event in a superposed state. After we interact with her, she assumes the identity of misadministrator. Basically, we measured her, and no, not in the way you're thinking. Okay, maybe that too, but that's beside the point. The idea is that because we perceived her as misadministrator, she became the Lambda from the event. And I know what you're thinking. Homo, you're on drugs, ain't you? Well, the joke's on you, because this is very plausible. Hear me out. Hoyoverse canonically made the player a higher dimensional being that can perceive and influence all the possible realities from their games. And, believe it or not, similar instances have been seen in the past. Remember the anti-entropy visual novel? During the scene in which Nancy Thomas Edison was trying to save New York, a talking dollar bill appears out of nowhere and starts conversing with her. This discussion is super random and it's never properly explained, but there are a few things that we can learn from it. First, Nancy was borrowing the power of an entity that exists in a higher dimension. Second, that entity operates in the conventional 11th dimensional space established by the string plus m theory. That means that the entity is an observer from a higher dimension, capable of watching every possible world and timeline in the Honkaiverse. Now, the only candidates that come to my mind would be the Eons from Honkai Star Rail or the being that Sue met at the end of the second key manga. So, we know that the concept of higher dimensional observers has been established long ago. Then, what makes us, the players, different from those entities? Especially since Hoyoverse is not a stranger at introducing us randomly in their stories. Not gonna say too much, but even in Honkai Star Rail, at one point, one of the characters addresses us directly. And I do not mean the player avatar, I mean us, the players behind the screens. Oh, and there's also this moment in ER when we planted a random idea in May's head when she first met Alicia. So, next time when you have a bad day, try to remember that you are basically a godlike being in the Honkaiverse.
Tune of finality.
I remember a few weeks ago reading this Reddit thread by user OpenLight. Although I have a bit of a different interpretation, the idea they propose here is very interesting. In the past, I tried to explain the concept of finality by introducing the idea of a Honkai onion, which is a multi-layered way to explore the concept through the perspective of multiple characters and their interpretation. Well, allow me to offer you today a new layer that wasn't presented in my previous video. If you remember the idea of finality explained through Kevin and Project Stigma's perspective, the cocoon of finality can be described as a higher dimensional being that wants to embrace humanity. In other words, the cocoon of finality could be seen as an observer from a higher dimension that wants to self-insert into a story by mimicking it. This is also why Kiana calls it a mirror. It takes on human concepts and creates harsher authorities based on them, hoping that they can somehow embrace humanity for him, since the gap between dimensions is too big for him to do it directly. Unfortunately, humanity is plagued by many negative emotions, and the reflections that the cocoon creates result in harshers that destroy the story instead. It was only when the cocoon reflected Kiana that he was able to find a way to successfully insert into the story. And you may ask, Hamu, how is this relevant to the topic? Well, one of the new perspectives that this theory brings is that both the players and the cocoon of finality are observers from a higher dimension, but the cocoon went further and broke the barrier between the story and the reader. Due to the barrier being broken, which is represented by how the cocoon is portrayed between two different dimensions, we were also allowed to influence the story in our own way. As beings of similar status, we created I Lambda through the pseudo-time crystal, made Hyperion appear out of thin air, and aided the Valkyries in their final fight against Kevin. The story of Honkai was always about foreign observers trying to self-insert themselves into the story.
Tekusaku saved the world.
Let's remember who Hoyoverse are at their core. Their slogan, Tech Otakus Save the World, is not just some random words thrown together. Well, it is, but they mean it. They are otakus. You can literally take a picture of Da Wei from 10 years ago and put it above the definition of the word in the dictionary. They are the kind of people who like to self-insert themselves in the media that they create and consume. If you partake in the otaku culture, you know damn well that the majority of anime is made with the idea of inserting the viewers into the story. Most anime have a bland and quiet protagonist, inclined to have a lawful good nature, meant to serve as a blank canvas for the people watching to insert themselves. Because you know that if they give them too much of a personality, people won't be able to relate to them. Does this ring a bell? That way also appears in every game they make in one form or another. Not to mention that they love to throw their logo in every goddamn place they can. They are also players at the end of the day, and they make their games to fulfill their own fantasies as well. Just like I am about to fulfill my own fantasy right now and ask you to subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy it. Thank you very much, now let's move on. During the first act of chapter 35, I Lambda refers to us as the beginning and end of time, the source of all stories. But why? We are not creators, we are just random people that are here to witness the story. And while true for the most part, the developers tried to tell us that even if we are strangers with no direct connections to each other, just by experiencing the game, we became a part of it. To us, the lives of the characters are just an illusion. But even illusions can leave their shadow in our hearts. Honkaiimpact 3 is a story about life, which was inspired by the lives of the developers themselves. It's a story that teaches us about kindness and loss, about moving forward and believing in the beauty of this imperfect world. It's a story born from real life, meant to make a positive change in another real life. That's why we are the beginning and end of all stories. Stories are not just stories anymore, they become a mirror and reflect ourselves. What's important is the emotion that we all feel together and that connects us through this journey called Honkaiimpact 3. We are happy because we see happiness in the story, and we are sad because we see sadness in the story. That's why Kiana calls the cocoon of finality a mirror, and this reflection is evident even in the community. Why do you think that we like so much to see new players go through the story for the first time and see them experiencing the Great Depression? Because we want to see others experience the same feelings as us. Even if we do not know each other directly, these feelings somehow connect us all. Now, in exchange, our emotions also reflect inside the story in the form of a blessing for the characters. Lambda's existence and all the fourth wall breaking is also a meta discourse. I think that this is also where the gap between some players and the developer's intention lies. Some people didn't want to see a discourse like this in the story. They wanted to experience the story as it was. Also, the fact that it was done during the ending of Kiana's story made it feel even worse. And I totally agree that it was intrusive and they could have done it better. But I also think that some people are way too harsh with them. In a recent documentary released on their YouTube channel, the developers go through some of the things that happen behind the scenes and talk about the overall process of developing the game. Honkai was a gamble that they couldn't afford to lose. So, from their perspective, the players that supported them are really important and they wanted to repay them and let them know that they are also part of the game. Through the documentary, they emphasize that this journey is one that we created together. It's their way of saying, we appreciate you and we want to acknowledge you, because at the end of the day, this is a story about all of us. Hoyoverse tries to experiment a lot with Honkaiimpact 3, and sometimes they just don't hit the mark in the way they want to. But for me, this exact thing is what makes me appreciate them more. They do not put themselves into a corner and do things that they know for sure that are safe. They try new things and they always look to push themselves and the game further. So, let me take this moment to express my sincere gratitude. Thank you Honkaiimpact 3 developers. I cannot wait to see what you'll bring us next.
Indeed. Yeah, I didn't. Indeed, for me too. Thank you, Honkaiimpact 3. I know I didn't really like play most of the game yet, but you know, one day. But I still want to thoroughly check it out sometime. And but you know, they all through all the they enable without the game there we get none of these, you know, videos that I've been watching. So thank you, Honkai. And interesting. I didn't know about the that stuff at the end of the story. Like I kind of saw a few times like the big ship, the Hyperion, kind of like shooting at Kevin, but I didn't know that was like player messages. And that is like an interesting idea, to be such a key part of the story during, you know, Kiana's like time. I could see how that could be maybe a little bit controversial of a decision. But like Homu said pretty well, they seem to do it like out of love. They try to do it like for the audience. It's sad if like they like if people got like too upset over that. Like I said, for me, I don't know. Sometimes I kind of hype with like fourth wall meta moments like that. But you know, something like this at the end, if we like it just inserts out of nowhere in the story, where like, you know, storylines are cooking up and things are going along. It may be a little weird, but you know, try new things. That's how you get, you know, cool things through the attempt of innovation. So shout out to the Honkai team for, you know, doing stuff like that. You know, I mentioned last time, sometimes I like take a little peek at comments, seeing what people are saying on some videos. And if there's nothing that of note, I just kind of edit that part out. But for this channel explaining lore in a better way than the wiki itself, I feel like that's a funny and hilarious. And that, honestly, shout out Homu Labs and Potato Almanac. Very good lore video. I can see why they're like the majority of this playlist. Anyone else who found themselves on this playlist, this is a very good find. And once again, shout out to Slime Tensei for like putting together this playlist. It's a very good lore explanation thing. Yeah, it feels like a whole other journey going on, you know, watching it. And at the top here, the concept I think is fine, but the execution, there wasn't much build up leading to a chance reveals to the gang, revealed to the gang, and bringing the full fledged just came out of nowhere at the very end, and it felt rushed and like a concept that the writers tried to force in. I think that's like a valid take. Like from what I like I said, I'm not really, you know, I didn't see the part of the game that they're talking about. This is the first time I'm hearing about like this insert stuff, but it did seem like it came out of nowhere, and it was a cool idea, but maybe could you had more build up to it, or had more fourth wall breaks of the story, you know, in it, just like kind of build up to it in a bit. But you know, I guess it I could see how that didn't go over well with everyone, but there is a part of it that to me still seemed like it could have been kind of cool, but maybe not at the very end out of nowhere. Alright, so this next video here, I'm actually going to skip over because I've already seen it. In fact, I think it was the main focus, if not like the entirety of a reaction. Honkaiimpact, or the documentary, A Story Left Behind. It's 40 minutes, so I'm not gonna rewatch it. I know I've been rewatching stuff that I've already seen this entire playlist, but those were only like a few minute animations, like 10 minutes at most, and like a key moment to the story. This though is a very good you know, interview, and it got, I think, mentioned in the Homu Labs thing. So I think that's why it got placed here in the playlist, because it was a great watch. It was honestly a great watch. But I did already peep it. If you want to see me react to it, you know, I have a like a Honkai playlist, but I did. It's been a little while, but this was on the character trailer playlist. But this one, this is an official Honkai upload, part 1.5 concept trailer, hailing from Nagazora and falling into the abyss. So part 1.5. Oh, Saley. Cool bite! Dang! I thought Bronya was the one to bite. Cool music on that one too.
Cele arrives in Nagazora 6 months after the Great Eruption.
It's Saley's time to shine. Oh, chapter 36 and 7. Okay, so we're still kind of sort of going in well, part 1.5. So, Kiana's still on the moon. But
And meets up with Susanna, who is doing an incredible job at keeping a low
we got
profile. Susanna
Sailor's
briefs Cele on their mission to investigate an
let me see if I can get this better quality.
organization causing trouble in the city called Incognito. After a short investigation, they contact Dr. Einstein and Tesla. For a moment, Cele notices a small distortion in space, but brushes it off. I'm sure this won't be important in the future, right? Einstein and Tesla revealed that Welt retired and started his own animation studio. Bronya joined him because she wanted to make games, and Teresa is now the leader of the newly merged organization between Schicksal and Anti-Entropy. Schicksal detected several attacks in the city claimed to be made by a group called Incognito. They seem to have a lot of mechs and are planning to put Nagazora in lockdown. Tesla claims to have found the perfect guide to help them, and the two girls leave for the roost to meet her, and of course the guide turns out to be Sora because who else could have been? After a lot of detective work, they arrive at the conclusion that Incognito might be related to Word Serpent. The girls lure and chase one of the Incognito's androids to an abandoned warehouse. The android's voice is eerily similar to Grey Serpent, but after they enter the building, the android mysteriously disappeared. As the operation failed, they decide to rest and continue the investigation tomorrow. Sora brings them to Chihuahua's foster home, an orphanage made by Raven, who was arrested after the Great Eruption but got out on bail, and now she's out working to atone for her sins. Whatever that means. At the foster home, Cele is reunited with Rosa and Lily, who are working as touring teachers, which is quite a scary prospect now that I think about it. While looking for a lost child, Cele is transported to an unfamiliar world. She is attacked by quantum shadows, but after defeating them, she wakes up in the real world with Susanna worryingly calling out her name. The next day, the doctors confirm that the voice truly belonged to one of the Grey Serpents. Apparently, Incognito only stole prosthetics to simulate tactile sensibility and real human organs. Based on that, they deduce their next target, and Cele and Susanna finally catch up with Grey Serpent. He reveals that he is the only member of the organization and that he was using the rumors about it to create confusion and disguise his plan. He was once an incomplete Grey Serpent without a personality. Word Serpent would use the Grey Serpent network to create personalities for the incomplete ones, but now that the network is gone, the incomplete ones will remain like that forever. This one had his personality completed right before the network collapsed and managed to escape. Since then, he became obsessed with having a real body and started stealing body parts to make one for himself. He manages to escape by splitting up his body and rearranging it. That is also how he escaped yesterday at the warehouse. Cele and Susanna formulate a new plan with the doctors. Now that Grey Serpent got his hands on the last bionic prosthetic, he will try to look for a place to reconstruct himself. They must take advantage of this moment and catch him before he leaves Nagazora. They get some intel about his location, but are attacked by Seeds of Ideas on their way. In case you forgot, Seeds of Ideas are incomplete ideas under Mistaline's control. After finally cornering Grey Serpent, they are suddenly transported in the Sea of Quanta. Misthalin is revealed to be somehow involved in this situation, but not even Grey Serpent knows her plan, although he is very happy to go along with it as long as it benefits him. Susanna isn't feeling too well. Cele thinks that there's something strange with the Sea of Quanta, cause Susanna should adapt well. I mean, duh, she's literally quantum. To everyone's surprise, Dark Cele separates herself from Light Cele's body. After that, Susanna suddenly starts feeling better, but quickly spirals back since she is too shocked to see two different Celes. Dark Cele confirms that this situation is related to Mistalin's powers. Because they are three separate individuals now, she is able to stabilize the space around them and help them move. As they advance, they find residual images left behind by Grey Serpent. It seems that he got killed in an altercation with another entity. They are attacked by quantum shadows and hop into a portal to a bubble world. Dark Cele sees another person who looks exactly like Light Cele inside her mind space. She thinks that it's another one of Mistalin's tricks and attacks her. After the fake Cele leaves, Dark Cele ends up in a bubble world by herself. She is approached by a bunch of wisps claiming to be humans who lost their forms. They reveal that the only way to maintain their existence is under the moonlight and ask Dark Cele to gather some moon rocks for them. Dark Cele reluctantly accepts, and after touching one of the moon rocks, she feels Light Cele's presence for a brief moment. Back in the real world, Dr. Lobster and Dr. Mophead are preparing to search for Cele and Susanna. In the meantime, Light Cele and Susanna arrive in a similar looking place to Dark Cele, but instead of being nighttime, it's day. Light Cele realizes that her other self is missing and starts panicking. Fortunately, Susanna calms her down and they look around for clues. They find a strange looking door full of black spikes that nobody in their right mind would ever get close to. Susanna, why are you trying to open it? I can see why she's still a B rank. A voice from behind the door asks for help. While looking for Dark Cele in the area, the voice behind the door wants them to collect some light salt and offer it on the altar in the front of the door to open it. After touching a piece of light salt in the center of the town, Light Cele feels Dark Cele's touch in a similar way that her counterpart felt before, and she recognizes this place as the dreamlike world that she was transported to at Chora's house. After they collect all the pieces of light salt, they open the door and meet Shigure Kira, who welcomes them to Salt Snow Holy City.
Chapter 37.
Kira recognizes that the two girls are wearing Shixal battlesuits and introduces herself as their senior Valkyrie. To nobody's surprise, the two girls have no idea who she is, but Susanna recognizes Cecilia's name and starts gushing over her. After the introductions are over, they travel to the main town to look for Dark Cele. They ask some questions from the locals and learn that another outsider was spotted in the city a few days ago, and that the people here believe in a deity capable of fulfilling the wishes of the people who pray to them, called the Sage of the High Tower. Also, it's always day outside, which wouldn't be anything out of the ordinary since this is a bubble world and it has its own laws, but the people here use the same method of calculating time as the real world, which doesn't make sense in this case. Lastly, the locals also use an AI assistant that seems way too advanced for them. Because of this, they suspect that another outsider might be behind these strange things. Soon after, they encounter a woman running away from a scythe-wielding monster. They save her and she reveals that those enemies are working for the sage and they are called oracles. Apparently, one of them confused her for an enemy. Yeah, confused, Anyway, we are introduced to female Vita. She welcomes the girls and offers to be their guide. Dark Cele is led to the largest city in the country of Fire and Sand. Unlike the Salt Snow Holy City, this city is covered in sand, has a more Middle Eastern aesthetic, and is plagued by eternal night. Dark Cele learns that the Wisps consider this bubble world some kind of afterlife. Just like Salt Snow Holy City, the citizens worship the sage and believe that they they will one day guide them back to life. Darkseele is suspicious of this sage and finds the behavior of these talking flame balls strange. Suddenly one of the wisps says that the sage just descended in the city. Darkseele wants to meet them, but the only person she sees is the almighty Herrscher of Sentience. Okay, at this point I think that Senti is Honkai's version of Mr. Worldwide. Back in Salt Snow Holy City, Vita tells them that the sage is their best bet to finding Darkseele. But since the sage lives in seclusion, Vita proposes to meet one of the sage's envoys first. She knows an old man recognized by the envoy and offers to ask him about a way to meet them. After they arrive at the old man's house, they learn that he recently passed away. Surprisingly, his family and acquaintances are not sad, since the people of this bubble world have a different perspective on the concept of death and afterlife due to their belief in the sage. Vita reveals that the sage can travel between life and death and that they guide the people's souls to the afterlife. Seele and the rest seem even more suspicious of the sage now. Unlike the majority of the people in this bubble world, Vita also seems to have some doubts about the sage. Meanwhile, Senti is impersonating the sage and makes illusions where she fulfills the wishes made by the wisps. Ah yes, truly the Herrscher of Scam. Darkseele calls her out and the two end up having an argument until they start fighting. Apparently, Senti is much weaker due to the lack of Honkai energy. The Herrscher reveals that she was brought here by Mistalin, and after realizing that they have a common enemy, Darkseele and Senti team up. Suddenly, the citizens are attacked by some monsters that look very similar to the oracles from Salt Snow Holy City. They are called Sand Servants and work for the sage to keep the order in the country of Fire and Sand. The wisps revealed that this was the first time that they ever attacked them. The next day, Vita tells Seele and the rest about the career selection, an event where citizens get assigned jobs. The sage's envoy will appear at today's selection, so they need to take this opportunity to meet them. They arrive in the plaza and talk with a mech who assigns them the job of ambassador for cultural prosperity, which is a fancy way to say idols, and tells them that they need to perform in front of the citizens. Kira instructs Seele and Susanna on how to be idols, all while Vita stays behind and is laughing at them. Also, Kira does not want to perform because she's afraid that people will realize that she can't sing. After Seele and Susanna put up a brilliant performance, they finally meet the envoy, who turns out to be Prometheus. They ask Prometheus about this bubble world and Mistalin's intentions, and the AI tells them about what she and Mistalin were up to in the months following the Great Eruption. The flashback starts in another bubble world. We see a man who looks like Owl, aka Chen Tianwu. Oh great, I wonder how will Hoyoverse torment him this time. Prometheus shows up and calls the man Abnormal Stigma number 13. Fun fact, Chen asks if Prometheus is that hacker girl, implying that this happens in the same bubble world that Brani is from. To keep this short, Prometheus reveals that he is not a human but an abnormal stigma created by the ripples caused by Project Stigma in the Sea of Quanta. The stigmata fabricated a set of false memories for him, making him believe that he lived all his life in this bubble world. At some point, his powers went berserk and he killed the people that he thought were his companions. After Chen realizes that his imaginary girlfriend never existed, he gets all depressed. Honestly, same man, same. After that, Mistalin brings him to her Stigma space. It is revealed that Mistalin and Prometheus are going around different bubble worlds to collect abnormal stigmata and stop them from causing harm. Shortly after they arrive in Salt Snow Holy City, Mistalin senses another abnormal stigma in the tower. As they begin looking for clues, we see Kira spying on them from afar. Mistalin goes to a secluded place to confront her, and we learn that Kira is not very good at stalking, which is yet another thing that we can add to the list of things she sucks at. Kira is mad and attacks Mistalin. She also notices that Mistalin looks exactly like Cecilia, a fact that only angers her even more. Finally! Thank you, Kira! I can't believe that it took so long for someone to address it. Look, I can understand May and Bronya not saying anything, but Kiana, she literally looks like your mom. The fight is interrupted by a mysterious person who turns out to be the Sage of the High Tower. Because Kira doesn't want to calm down, Mistalin yeets her into the Sea of Quanta. They confirm that the sage is indeed another abnormal stigma, and they try to explain the situation. The sage pulls a reverse card and stops the light coming from the tower, throwing the entire bubble world into chaos. Mistalin and Prometheus realize that this abnormal stigma is heavily tied with the laws that govern this bubble world, making it impossible for them to remove her. The sage restores the bubble world to normal and returns to the tower. Mistalin and Prometheus follow her. After a few days of observation, they arrive at an agreement. The first part of the agreement is to help her govern the bubble world. It is revealed that the AI and the mechs in the city were constructed by Prometheus to help administrate the city. And the second part of the agreement is for Mistalin to bring Cele to this bubble world to serve as some sort of template. Back to the present. Prometheus admits that Mistalin lured Cele here on the sage's behalf and that the two Celes were separated because of the special rules of the bubble world. Based on Prometheus' story, they deduce that the sage cannot leave the tower for long and that Dark Cele must be in a different place that only the sage can access, the afterlife. Prometheus cannot reveal more and tells them that they should meet the sage and ask her directly. Cele refuses because she doesn't want to put herself in danger. Prometheus suddenly leaves and the girls are attacked by Max. Meanwhile, Dark Cele and Santi are slowly losing their physical forms and becoming wisps. Dark Cele follows the advice of the residents and collects some moon rocks. Her body returns to normal and she also slaps Santi with some rocks to help her regain her form. Okay, when I started this arc, I didn't expect this weird friendship to be one of the highlights, but here we are. Santi analyzes the sentiences in this bubble world and deduces that she and Dark Cele are the only independent minds. The wisps are desynchronized and she cannot read their thoughts. They question the residents who all have missing parts in their memories, but strangely enough are aware of things they shouldn't be. Dark Cele suspects that some of their memories may come from the people in the world of the living. They arrive at a place with many moon rocks and hear Schrodinger's voice coming from one of them, revealing that these are not real moon rocks. In the Holy City, the group realizes that this place has two different bubble worlds that are entangled, one being the world of the living and the other being the afterlife. To find a way to reach the underworld, Vita suggests finding another envoy, a hermit who can predict the future through poems. They arrive at the hermit's house, but meet Mistalin instead. Mistalin urges them to meet the sage, but they refuse. Mistalin claims that her aim is to save the underworld and directs them to the border where all the secrets will be revealed. Dark Cele and Santi told Schrodinger everything they've experienced. Schrodinger was supposed to meet Kira at this location but ended up in two different bubble worlds just like the two Celes. Schrodinger tells them that because she has no physical body, she can establish a connection with humans as long as she knows their coordinates. Based on Kira's location, she used one of the moon rocks as a medium, so we finally learn how she is able to just pop into existence at any time and give us exposition dumps. Honestly, awesome. They decide to go to the border of this bubble world and find a way to locate Cele and Kira. After a stroke of genius, Santi realizes that the moon rocks are just pieces of rock salt that fell down from the moon, which is in fact a giant tower that illuminates the sky. To help you visualize how these two bubble worlds are connected, think of a hourglass with each half being one bubble world. Light Cele's group arrives at the border and encounters the same black sludge from chapter 36, which turns out to be a consequence of the two bubble worlds overlapping. Because this place is closer to the underworld, Light Cele can hear the voices of the people on the other side. She hears Santi's voice and realizes that the other group is in the same location. Light Cele recalls that she previously felt Dark Cele's presence after holding a piece of light salt and decides to do the same in hopes of establishing a connection. On the other side, Dark Cele recounts the same moment and has the same idea. Professor Rock offers to use her abilities to help them synchronize, and after Dark Cele touches a piece of moon rock, she feels Light Cele's presence on the other side. Light Cele experiences the same sensation and the two are finally reunited.
Story, yeah, I just kind of locked in there. I don't think I ever really saw anything about this storyline until now. Like, even like some of the, of course, like this playlist has revealed like some story bits and lines that like I haven't didn't know until watching. But I don't know. I don't remember anything about any of this really. And then the one character, like the just in the thumbnail thing. Oh, her. Never see her before with the half blue face. Never seen her before. Seeing Senti and Dark Sele be like a duo, that's kind of crazy. So yeah, still some cool stuff for Honkai Part 1.5 it seems. Well, after the ending of Part 1, very very cool.
Sele will.
But all right. I have been recording for a bit. It's been a little while, and this is a longer video, but I think we'll do one more. We'll do one more here. It's about Sele, so we're kind of in theme here. And it's I believe this is a potato almanac. No, this is. Oh, for some reason I thought I heard potato almanac. This is a Homo Labs video again. And why Sele won't return from the Sea of Quanta, Honkaiimpact third theory. Last one for the day,
will not
but it's
return
22 minutes.
from the Sea of Quanta. Yeah, you heard me right. No more. I am a bit conflicted. Chapter 38 just released in CN and addressed some of the things I wanted to talk about in this video. Initially, I planned to not look at the chapter at all, but to avoid stupid "oh, he looked at CN and he's lying" accusations, I decided to take a look anyways. And oh boy, I'm glad I did, because otherwise I would have never beaten those allegations. So, I will mention some stuff that happens in chapter 38, but don't worry, it will be towards the end and I will put a big spoiler warning for you to know when to back out. Unfortunately, this is the only way to make the video the way I want to and also be fair to you guys. So, thank you for understanding me, and without further ado, let's talk about the new story arc. In chapter 36, Sele and Susanna are dispatched to Nagazora to investigate an organization called Incognito that is causing problems in the city. They discover that the one behind the organization is one of the remaining Grey Serpents. While pursuing him, Sele and Susanna get trapped into the Sea of Quanta. There, the two Seles are separated and transported to different bubble universes. Sele and Susanna arrive in Salt Snow Holy City, while Dark Sele is transported to the country of Iron Sand. Sele and Susanna met Shigure Kira and a very sus resident called Vita. Meanwhile, Dark Sele encounters the great and magnificent Herrscher of Sentience. Please note that I say these words of my own volition. My mind isn't under someone's control or anything of the sort. And they also meet Professor Rock Nanodesu. Both Seles learn that the people of these bubble universes worship an entity called the Sage of the High Tower. While the Holy City represents the world of the living, the country of Iron Sand represents the afterlife. The residents of the Holy City believe that the Sage will bring the souls of the dead to the underworld, while the residents of the underworld, who have lost their physical bodies and can only exist as wisps, believe that the Sage will allow them to be reborn someday. Sele, Vita, Kira and Susanna encounter Prometheus, who tells them about how she and Mistalin started hunting these so-called abnormal stigmata born in the Sea of Quanta due to the ripples caused by Project Stigma. The two first arrived in the Salt Snow Holy City because they sensed an abnormal stigma present here. By pure chance, they also met Shigure Kira and ended up in a short altercation with her. Their fight was stopped by the Sage, who turned out to be the abnormal stigma they were searching for. Unlike the other abnormal stigma from before, the existence of this one was tied to the laws of the bubble universe, which made it difficult for them to remove her without putting the entire bubble universe in danger. After some time, Mistalin and Prometheus made a deal with the sage to govern the people in her place and to bring Sele over to this bubble universe. On the other hand, Dark Sele, Senti and Professor Schrödinger tried to figure things out at their own end. Due to a previous incident where both Seles could feel each other's presence after touching a piece of salt rock, they decide to go to the border and try to establish a connection again. The other group does the same, and the two Seles are able to reunite and talk with each other again. I know that this recap is a bit bare bones, but please keep in mind that I will do a more detailed one for the entire story arc when everything is over.
Life and death.
Sele is often associated with the concepts of life and death. One of the main motives behind Sele's design is the butterfly. Butterflies represent being reborn and resurrection due to their metamorphosis. They also represent the soul in various cultures around the world. For instance, for the Japanese, a white butterfly indicates the soul of the departed. In ancient Greece, butterflies were the emblem of the soul and represented immortality. The ancient Greeks also called the butterfly Psyche, which means mind or soul. Even her name literally translates as soul in German. Sele is also associated with the Herrscher of Death from the previous era. While not directly connected, besides the fact that they are most likely different iterations of the same person through the cycles of the samsara, they share an identical looking stigma. Despite its name, the powers of the Herrscher of Death are not related only to, death. In fact, a much more accurate representation of this power would be the power over life and death. Much like the Shariach Holy Blood, the authority of the Herrscher of Death can heal and decompose. This is evident in how the Abyss Flower is made up of two different weapons that embody those abilities. The Black Abyss, which has the power of destruction, and the White Flower, which has the power of healing.
Bubble universe.
Another part of this story that is connected to the concepts of life and death are the two bubble universes where the action takes place. What's strange about them is the fact that these two bubble universes exist in the same place. I saw some people associating them with the concepts of heaven and hell, which I'm not that big of a fan of, since both of those are concepts of afterlife, while here only one is meant to represent that. Rather, if I were to associate the underworld with the depiction of afterlife, it would definitely be the purgatory and not hell. According to medieval Christian belief, the purgatory is a place of purification and temporary punishment, where the souls of the dead are prepared for heaven. The purgatory answers the human need to believe in a just and merciful cosmos, one in which ordinary people may undergo correction, cleanse, and heal their souls. And while it's not a one-to-one situation, you can perceive the afterlife in this bubble universe as some sort of purgatory. The souls that end up here must bask in the moonlight to maintain their form, which can be seen as some sort of purification. They do this while waiting for the sage to one day lead them back to life, similarly to how the souls in the Christian purgatory wait to enter heaven. The sage also refers to the process of the souls bathing in moonlight as consolation. The act of consolation is to offer someone comfort, solace, or consideration. This, again, aligns very well with the idea of purgatory, which is seen as God's consolation towards the soul of the dead. Another interesting element present in both bubble universes is the salt rock, which has the same property as the light that is coming from the tower and can help the souls in the underworld maintain their form, while also purifying the corruption in the world of the living. In Christianity, salt has been associated with the idea of light and used to symbolize spiritual cleansing and purification.
The sage.
The Sage of the High Tower is one of the central figures of this story. Based on what Prometheus and Mistalin said in chapter 37, it's important to make the distinction between the person that is the Sage and the idea of the Sage itself. The Sage right now is an abnormal stigma born 6 months ago by the ripples caused by Project Stigma in the Sea of Quanta. But, based on what the people of the Bubble universe said, the concept of the Sage existed way before that. This suggests that the idea of the Sage predates the existence of the current one. As she demonstrated when she stopped the lights of the tower and threw the entire Bubble universe into chaos, the powers of the current Sage are real. Then how is it possible for an abnormal stigma to become the Sage? Well, this is my initial speculation. Stigma in essence are human narratives projected in imaginary space. I am not going to go into details. If you want to know more, watch my videos about Project Stigma and Stigmata. The concept of the Sage is a narrative of this world, and this abnormal stigma took the form of this
The sun is exposing me. It may be a bit early in the morning.
narrative when it was born. Due to the strange laws of the Sea of Quanta and Stigmata, I believe that she became the embodiment of the legend of the Sage of the High Tower that the people of this Bubble universe believed in. Similarly, I also believe that you can become the embodiment of a cool and wise person just by pressing that subscribe button at the bottom of the video. So, what are you waiting for? Subscribe for more Honkai lore related content. I am sure that you've already figured this out, but based on her appearance and the fact that they share the same VA, the Sage seems to be an alternate version of Sele. During the Durandal visual novel, we learn that people inside a Bubble universe can exist as copies of people from the real world. Also, since the Sage is a stigma crystal like Mistalin, she must have used a real person as a template to manifest a body. This is similar to how Mistalin used Cecilia and Abnormal Stigma number 13 used Chen Tianwu.
I don't think I've heard of Chen till today either. Maybe not, I don't know.
Vita. You know, I actually got to like her. Too bad that she's a massive walking red flag. Let's talk about Miss Sass here. I saw quite a few debates on whether Vita is a female variant of Sue or not. In my opinion, she is. There are just too many similarities between the two. The color of her hair and eyes, the pattern on her clothes, everything about Vita screams Sue. And maybe the biggest giveaway is the mark on her neck, which is identical to Sue's. Now, if she truly is a female version of Sue, then is she the same person that Sue talked about in ER? For those of you who don't know, during one of his many conversations with Mei in ER, Sue told her about a woman that is an alternate version of himself that chased his consciousness through multiple worlds. He described her as malicious with incredibly strong psychic powers. Many took that piece of dialogue as foreshadowing, so it would make sense for Vita to be her. Otherwise, why make a Sue female variant in the first place? Why not make a cow-pass female counterpart? Now that's something I would have loved to see, damn it. In all seriousness, from a writing perspective, it would make the most sense. But at the same time, the story still didn't give us enough reasons to believe that. What's also interesting about Vita is her apparent lack of devotion for the Sage. All the people in this Bubble universe have a strong faith in the Sage. Everybody except for Vita. Regardless, there is a lot more to her than meets the eye, that's for sure. But I will go into more details about her in the spoiler section.
Separation. Oh, it's like red and blue.
In chapter 36, the two Celes were separated and were able to exist independently from each other. Even if this was completely out of their control, their entire journey through the game pointed toward this moment. Let's talk about why I think that they'll remain separated. First, Who is Dark Cele? She is a form/stigma crystal born as a response to Cele's desire for protection. Throughout the series, Cele relies on her to protect herself in the face of danger. After the Sea of Quanta story arc, we see Cele trying to be more independent. This is best seen during the Herrscher of Domination arc, where she wanted to solve her problems by herself. Unfortunately, the enemy at that time was way beyond her level, so she ended up relying on Dark Cele. Later, during the detective investigation in Nagazora, she didn't call upon Dark Cele at all, showing her growth and determination to pull through on her own. Similarly to Cinnamon Roll Cele, her other self has her own struggles and growth. The issue with Dark Cele was that she went through a continuous identity crisis ever since she was born. Was she a human or a monster? Chapter 33 focused a lot on her trying to find an identity for herself. She also had a lingering fear that one day Cele will not need her anymore. Because her entire identity revolved around protecting Cele, she feared that if Cele grew strong enough to where she didn't need her, she will lose her only sense of self. Both of them were dependent on each other, but as time passed, they learned to give each other more space and grow. That's why I think that the two will remain separated from now on. When Dark Cele was born, she was a necessary presence in Cele's life. She was weak and couldn't protect herself, but as she continues to grow, she doesn't need protection anymore. Dark Cele always tied her identity to Cinnamon Roll Cele, to a point where it was sort of toxic, for the lack of a better word. They had a similar relationship to a child and a parent. As children, we need our parents to be constantly present in our lives because we don't have the means to survive on our own. After we become adults, we kinda break off and become independent. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you don't need your parents in your life as an adult. You always need them in your life. But at some point, you need to stop relying on them for everything. Otherwise, you'll have serious issues in your adult life. I believe that the relationship between the two Celes is similar. They needed to always be together in the past, but now I see them at the point where separating could help them grow even more. I will expand on this in the next part when we enter into chapter 38 spoiler territory. So, this is my big spoiler warning to you. If you want to play the chapter for yourself on global, please leave now. Thank you very much for watching and I'll see you next time. If you don't mind spoilers, let's continue.
Chapter 38.
Okay, oh my god, this chapter is crazy. Initially I was going to talk about how Cele will become the new sage, and lo and behold, she actually did. And a lot sooner than I expected. Please keep in mind that everything that I will say is based on fan translation, so I'm still missing a few pieces of the puzzle. If I get something wrong, please correct me in the comments. Cele being the new sage was obvious based on the whole setup from chapter 37. The concept of sage is one of the laws of this bubble universe, so there must always be a sage for the bubble universe to function normally. My understanding is that before abnormal stigma number 14 took over the position, the entire bubble universe was in chaos, and she was born as a response to the people's wishes for a sage that keeps things in order. The issue with the current sage is that because she is an abnormal stigma, she is incomplete and cannot properly fulfill the sage's duty. Every time she tries to bring the souls of the dead to the underworld, she loses a part of herself, resulting in the souls of the afterlife having destabilized forms and manifesting as wisps. Because of this, they needed a new sage that can fulfill this duty properly to save those people and the bubble universe. Mistalin and the sage hope that Cele will be able to do it, since she perfectly embodies the concept of 2-in-1, which is tied to the laws of the bubble universe. The laws of the bubble universe say that only the sage can travel between life and death. When the two Celes were able to communicate at the end of chapter 37, since they share one body, the bubble universe recognized Cele as someone with the ability to travel between the world of the dead and the living, thus becoming the second sage of the High Tower. The issue after that was that there can only be one sage. Since now there were two, the entire bubble universe started collapsing. To stop that, Cele had to defeat the current sage and fully take control over the tower. After they resolved the conflict with the sage and the other abnormal stigma, Cele took up the position of the sage, but the bubble universe was still collapsing. Soon, they realized that there must be another law above the sage itself that causes the issue. Kira reveals that she and Molasses traveled to another bubble universe that faced a similar fate. There, they learned that the bubble universe was destroyed by an entity that had the power to change the laws of the bubble universe itself. That entity was going around the Sea of Quanta, destroying many bubble universes in the process. Not even the Sugars are sure who or what this entity is, but they called it the Abyss of the Sea of Quanta. For someone to be able to change the laws of a bubble universe, that being must be similar in power to the Cocoon of Finality. Kira believes that the same entity is behind the demise of this bubble universe as well. Schrödinger reveals that there is a way to anchor and save this bubble universe, but that would require either Kiana or a new Herrscher that is born from the Sea of Quanta and is not tied to the proper universe. For Cele to anchor this bubble universe in a similar way to the Randall, she must become a being equivalent to the Herrscher of Finality for this bubble universe. Unfortunately, a Herrscher born in the Sea of Quanta seems way too paradoxical to be a feasible plan. So instead, they decide to work together and use the fixed anchor points of this bubble universe to find a way and transport it closer to the real world, so that Kiana will be able to anchor the bubble universe. While this mess is going on, Vita finally reveals that she's not from this bubble universe. What a shocker, am I right? Initially, she was from the proper world, like the rest of them, but she wasn't from Earth, but Venus. The civilization there was destroyed by the Honkai, which we learn in chapter 35, and she ended up in the Sea of Quanta near Earth. Then, she drifted and arrived in the bubble universe that Kira and Molasses previously visited, and there she was part of the team that was supposed to find a new habitable planet for the people of the bubble universe before it got destroyed. When the explosion happened and the residents were killed, Vita was far away and she was able to manage to survive. After the bubble universe was destroyed, she ended up drifting in the Salt Snow Holy City. So yeah, it seems that Vita is actually not the evil Sue. This is a really interesting turn of events. Unless maybe she's lying. But
yeah, I even when he explained it, like she had the same tattoo, I was like, wow, really? I was convinced
what happens
too.
in chapter 38, this is pretty unlikely. Anyway, Hoyo may still surprise us. And now, the big question. Will Cele be able to return? Since the addition of APHO2 and Silverwing Bronya, there were all sorts of speculations that something might have happened to Cele. Well, now we know. During chapter 38, Dark Cele has a pretty grim vision of the future. In this future, Light Cele is gone after this incident and the other Cele is alone. To cope with her loss, she starts pretending to be Light Cele, fooling everyone around her. Now, while this vision is pretty up, I don't think that it will happen. Since we already know that Cele will become a Herrscher, I think that in reality she will survive. However, and maybe I'm completely wrong about this, I think that she will remain in this bubble universe to keep it stable. During one of the dialogues in APHO, we learn that the real leader of Squad 2 is someone with a bad personality that matches a lot Dark Cele's personality. And since in this vision we learn that Dark Cele is a Valkyrie and she's connected to one of the squads, it really makes me think that she is the actual leader of Squad 2. Well, Light Cele will survive, but she will remain in this bubble universe to fulfill her duties as a sage. Meanwhile, Dark Cele will continue her life in the real world, but she won't pretend to be Light Cele and cope with her loss. Instead, she will be herself, because Light Cele is actually alive. That would also explain Bronya's attitude in APHO, and it would make the most sense to me. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you think that Cele will remain in the Sea of Quanta, or do you think that the vision will become true and that she will die? This chapter has been full of revelations that I didn't even touch upon, like the new lore about the Sky People, and this new mysterious entity that seems to be set up as the next big villain. For the moment, I want to wait a bit and gather my thoughts, and after this chapter is out on Global, I will make more videos on this.
Very good video. interesting story with Sailey at the end here. So yeah, maybe in the future videos here, maybe next time I'll see if what happens with Sailey, if she returns or not from the Sea of Quanta. Yeah, it's crazy stuff, crazy story going on. Very interesting. Shout out to Homo Labs once again. And yeah, that is, for now, that is going to do it for me. Next time, we will be back once again. We're on 148 out of 210 in this playlist, so, we still have a bit to go for definitely. We still have 60 more videos. And there's some, that may be, short, but a lot are like a decent length. So yeah, we very interesting. As we'll see. I didn't really know what was gonna be after the part 1, so we got part 1.5 with Sailey. Very, very cool. And we'll see what happens from here on. For now, though, guys, that's going to do it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like or dislike, subscribe, or don't subscribe. It's always like, I'll see you guys in the next video. You watch it for me. Goodbye.